Hey folks, how we doing? Hey Steve.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
All right, we're
Yeah.
moving ahead in our podcast world. We're going to do this from home, and you're doing this in studio.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. We did that once the opposite way, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool actually what we're doing these podcasts. So we've experimented in the semester with a podcast. I think we've got James Ward sitting on the other side
Yep.
of your camera.
Yep.
Podcast studio in a box. So he's the switcher and the. So we'll see how it
Yeah,
works.
he's running the show. He's helping us out a great deal. Yeah, yeah. So today we're going to talk about the proposals for the 21st century module, which will, we're rounding to the end here. This is, the semester is winding down, and we've listed them here in just like we did last time, where we've added this to the course wiki, where we've sort of boxed them into uses and grats, affordances, a little bit different. We added in sort of like some people focusing in on the remediation stuff. Some of those are also focusing in on affordances, but it just depended on what you front loaded in your proposal, where we put you in. These are almost like your primary focus, and then if you had secondary focuses, obviously it's just tough to list them in two different categories. So we thought it might be easy if we just kind of highlight a couple of them and talk through what we thought was interesting, and how they're bringing the theories in interesting ways, or putting the format in interesting ways. And so how about we just jump in here? Let's see. So I've got. Let's bring. Who do we want to start with?
Well, this is interesting being on this side of the podcast because I don't think I get to see your screen. Is that correct?
I don't know. Do you see my tabs drop down when I do that?
No, I don't. I
No.
just see your.
You gotta share your screen to his Zoom.
That's
Now we're
right.
getting technical advice from James.
That's
right.
right,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
see your screen, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I would have to jump out of here. So I'll just.
No, you don't need to.
I'll tell them. Say I'll just drive here and.
Yep.
So let's bring up Catherine's for a second here.
Okay.
Because it's sort of good pairing between two proposals that we saw that looked at non-digital natives in a really interesting way. And Catherine starts by talking about these really interesting ways to think about spatial understanding of the world, and it's very much like in line with the Rushkoff, like this idea of a digital native might literally look at the world differently, find their way through the world differently than a non-digital native. And what happens when the devices start speaking to digital natives, and what happens to the non-digital natives when that starts happening? How do they find their way? Does their spatial recognition change? There's a movie, I don't know if you guys happen to have seen. Did you see Arrival?
I didn't.
Oh, you should see it. It's about language and about how learning a new language can rewire your brain in interesting ways. And it's a sci-fi movie. It's great. But yeah, so this reminds me of that. This idea that we move the affordances of digital technology can somehow influence our. Do we become more adventurous or less adventurous, more inquisitive, less inquisitive, that kind of thing. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was terrific, and I kind of really like the idea, the way that she wants to focus in on Bolter and Grusin's challenge about what a graphical user interface could look like, an
Right.
interfaceless interface,
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
and that would be quite So I thought this was a really a great topic,
Yep.
and then how she creates it using Adobe Captivate, I think, is an excellent
Yeah.
opportunity. Because what I really like about Catherine's work throughout is that she is consistently saying, "Okay, I'm going to try to use this and then apply it in this setting." So
Right.
she kind of has a purpose, in a sense, for using Adobe Captivate. So I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, and pairing that in some ways, thematically pairing that, Justin's looking at the way non-digital natives are spoke to in marketing materials or how-to videos or hands-on videos. So when a digital technology emerges that maybe a non-digital native or the makers of the non-digital native wouldn't necessarily think they'd be able to understand, they speak to them in terms of older technology, like use the language and the vernacular of the older technology to kind of get the non-digital native up to speed. So I think that was a really interesting way to think about it.
And he wants to do that from the graphic perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the example he gives us in his overview is when you have a pen,
Yeah.
represented as the icon, when clearly you're not using a pen.
Right. There's no ink
And I
being
think that-
dispersed.
Yeah. And collecting some examples of that.
Yeah, exactly. And going, it's like almost like an ethnographic exploration of these how-to videos, which is really cool. I thought that was really cool.
There's words for that with. And we
Okay.
were just talking about that. And
Yeah.
there's a retronym is a word that like horseless carriage is a retronym. You don't need to define something as horseless until you have something that runs without a horse.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And someone who never saw a horse-drawn carriage has no need to say horseless carriage. It's just not
Not only
necessary.
no need, but potentially no concept.
Right.
Like, what is a horseless carriage? And so it's the same with the pen, right? So if you've never used a pen, and I don't know if we're going to get to quite that stage where people exist who've never used a pen, but if they've never used a highlighter, then that icon will make no sense.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I-
and I do think that we would get to some of the other, like I always think of the phone icon that's on your
Yes.
phone that looks like a cradle. Most phones don't look like a cradle set anymore.
Right. So so it's interesting to see how that, and that's a really good example, that old cradle phone.
Yeah.
Which the affordances were so you could hold it with your neck. I think.
Yeah, and then you get that extender
was
one if you were doing it
yeah.
for a long time, like the extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the extra little piece,
Yeah.
but you wonder like how long that symbol sticks.
Yeah.
And to our students, our undergraduates, or your kids,
Yep.
and I keep coming back to her, right?
Yep.
I didn't mean to pluralize kids.
No
there.
problem. Not yet.
But at some point she will. That icon will have zero meaning.
Yeah.
It will have meaning as a phone, but no connection. It'll be like a random image to her, I would imagine.
Yeah.
She'll never see that cradle.
Right.
Ever. So that's great. And I love to see the sort of the idea of students pushing that, and that's in the nature of this module. That's what we're really hoping for. People who are really interested in graphics can then apply the theories to graphic issues.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
I like when you drive. It's good.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we got here? Yes, we got this memo up, Robert's memo here, discussing the reliable news, fake news. So you had an interesting term for this before we started.
Well, I like Robert. I've talked with
Yeah.
him on the phone. He's great. There's a sort of a get off of my lawn approach in some respects. It's like all the internet is fake. It's the interesting challenge for people confronted with a massive flow of information in the internet with all of the gatekeepers removed is to recognize it as that.
Yeah.
So you've got flow, you've got gatekeepers, and it's really not a function of the internet in a sense. It's not that the information is fake. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but like, how do we confront that? And so, and I think that that's really what Robert's topic is about.
Yeah.
But I think approaching it from a perspective of how do people confront this flow of information absent the tools that have been present in information flow for a long time.
Yeah.
1,000 years,
Yeah.
maybe, something in that. I mean, that's a long time, especially the shift from 20th to 21st century. Certainly in 20th century, library science came into its own. Librarians took on a role of recommenders, and editors had a role and a function. And now we've advanced or regressed away from them, and that's an approach I think to take. But it doesn't have to actually start with the notion that the information is fake.
Right. It's about that. Yeah. The gatekeepers. The controllers of it. Yeah. And how.
Although I appreciate the get off of my lawn approach.
Yeah. Well, and then we paired that a little bit with another get off of my lawn approach, right? We have the privacy. Yeah.
In the privacy, it's.
Well, it's a really interesting concept because of the generational difference between how people think of privacy and what that's going to mean.
It's not so much that the digital technologies have eroded privacy rights, is that they've exposed weaknesses in our concept of privacy as we expose more of ourselves. So it's not like we had these rights and they've been taken away. There just wasn't an opportunity for the marketers to take our marketing information in that way. So it's not like we've lost our rights.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. It's like that. It's like there just was no. It's the affordances of the technology have created, like you said, exposed the gaps in. So we weren't even able to do this before. So maybe no, maybe there would have been rights that people would have laid out if anyone could have foreseen this.
And if, in fact, what happens is that privacy rights are not eroded in this era; they're created.
Right, we have to draw new lines as the new, or we have to decide to.
We had operating assumptions for how the world worked in the 20th century, but we didn't have to call them rights because you couldn't have your quote unquote rights or your privacy violated in that way. Now that you can, there's a necessity to create this notion of rights.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is some kind of legal analog to this, and like the idea of a reasonable expectation of privacy when you're in public is not there. So if someone takes a picture of you when you're out in the public park, they don't have to censor. Like if a news crew is there and they don't make you look bad in any way, they can show that without getting you to sign off on it because you're out in public. But if they use some kind of telephoto lens and X-ray technology to zoom in past your walls in your home, that's different. And so this is similar. Like it's different. It's connected to this idea of the reasonable expectation of privacy, right? I mean, I feel like there's a connection there. The affordances have made it so we now have to draw these lines.
Yeah. So the get off of my lawn reference wasn't meant to be negative in a sense, but approaching the topic from like, oh, my rights are being all this new technology, everything's fake, my rights are violated. I'm encouraging a more of a open and positive approach.
Well, it's interesting because it just connects to it connects very interestingly to the generational discussion we've been having for this module, and because a lot of times I in class, my undergrad class, talk about things like this and Foucault's panopticon and all this kind of stuff, and the undergrads are like I ask like how many people really don't like that their privacy, and they just don't care. It just is not a concern. They're like I don't care if marketers, I don't care about big data. Like they just don't seem to care that that Target knows more about them than it's not a concern. Their usual retort is, well, then I get better advertisements targeted toward me.
And so it's I think was this Jared or Justin's?
Jared.
Thank you. Pardon?
Jared.
Yeah, I get confused with the J's. I think he's right to cast it in terms of rights, and it's in some ways it would be interesting to flip it and talk about emerging rights as a result of technological possibilities, as opposed to retreating rights as a vote of technological advancement. I think the emergence of rights, or the emergence of the concept of rights, or the necessity to exercise rights, is probably more on target.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's a separate topic about why people care about, or if people care at all about their sense of privacy. And I think you're right that there's generational issue, and they don't.
Just not as much as you'd think they would, right? Or not as much as that I do, or yeah.
It's just in my new Android life, I've decided to go all in on Google.
Okay.
To see how much they can know about me. And it is pretty cool. Like it's you get reminders for things that you didn't set as a reminder because it's read your mail and you have a flight. So hey, you better leave soon because your flight's leaving from this airport. You better get on the road because you're going to miss it based on your location. It's like whoa. And the whole and that gets into the digital personal assistant space.
Yeah.
Which is interesting as well. So,
yeah, I think there's a new Tom Hanks movie that's The Circle that's about that. Yeah, that stuff.
You just watch them all, don't you?
Well, it's just, I'm a vociferous media consumer.
It's good. Yeah. So okay.
Let's see what we got. Howard's, Shelley's.
Yeah, Shelley Howard's. She's DIY graphics, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really.
I love the spin that she took, and
cool.
It's It's to say, look at these do-it-yourself graphics. What is the impact on the professional core of graphic designers? And I think that's a great spin, and and does it she kind of asks the question, does it advance the world? And from a perspective of graphic design, the answer is probably not. You know,
Right.
if you're a graphic designer, no matter what tools you're making, your website's going to look better than mine.
Right. Yeah, it's
I
the
just-
yeah. YouTube did not enhance the cinematography of you know, like the content that any professional television movie news producer is going to create is going to look more professional than a YouTuber.
Well, some people are going to look better than others.
Right. It's just
Whether they're professional or not, you know, their camera, they just have a sense of the camera angle.
Right.
And some of them have formal training in those kinds of things,
Right.
and that formal training shows up. And then what the DIY stuff, and I think where Shelley's really getting at
Yep.
it, is the DIY stuff basically says that who cares?
yeah, exactly.
And good enough.
Yeah.
And
Well, 'cause
and I'm
yeah, the immediacy of it, the urgency,
yeah. So you trade urgency for there's a fly flying around.
There was one in the studio we were just talking about too. It's like, what is?
Oh, must have come here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So no, but I really like, and I love that she approaches it from the perspective of a designer.
Yes.
So she says, what does this mean for me? And how do then, and what it creates in her world as a graphic designer is the necessity to convince people or convey, hey, I still have value added.
Yeah.
You can build, but you know, if you want that nicely painted, you want that sharp edge, you better hire a professional painter. If you want to paint it yourself, go for it. And it's going to look like my house, which I painted, right? You know, and that's a really interesting, you know, and does it make a difference? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I don't really know. Is it better to get it out faster than get it out better?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, James
So
is shaking his head now.
Then that's a great question.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump back to here to. Like we said, just giving a little bit of an overview. We talked a little bit about some of these. Most of the projects are really well thought out in terms of theoretical connections. So we appreciate the shift towards that that we noticed obviously in the last module as well. So everything seems to be heading well in the right direction at the end of the semester, which is good.
All right. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Ryan, I will catch you later.
Yeah. Thanks.
See you later. Thanks, James.